At the crossroads of civilizations, one legend has stood tall for over 1,500 years, Hagia Sophia. Once the largest cathedral on Earth for an entire millennium, this masterpiece left the world in awe, not just for its colossal scale or rare materials, but for its dome that seems to float in midair, defying gravity and surviving countless earthquakes. Today, we open the doors of time and step into the heart of Hagia Sophia to uncover: how did people in the 6th century, with only primitive tools, create a wonder so far ahead of its time? Chapter 1. The City in the Era of a Dream. On a winter morning in 532, the fog from the Marmara Sea crept over every roof, weaving through the damp, stone-paved streets of Constantinople. This city, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, was not only the capital at that time, but also the trade center connecting Asia and Europe, where all trade routes and cultural flows converged. But hidden behind the glamour were fresh, bleeding wounds. The Nika riots, which erupted just days before, had burned down a series of major structures, claiming the lives of tens of thousands. Amid that ash heap, a sacred structure, the old Hagia Sophia church, was left with only charred walls. In the royal palace, Emperor Justinian I sat in deep thought before the city map. He knew that if he just rebuilt it as before, the people would never forget the recent pain. Something more than reconstruction was needed, a structure surpassing all limits, affirming the empire's power while sending a message to the world that Constantinople was still the immortal heart of humanity. And that idea turned into a resounding declaration: build a church that has never existed before and will never exist again. The command was issued, and 2 names were chosen: Anthemius of Tralles, a mathematician, mechanical engineer, famous for his ability to calculate complex geometry, and Isidore of Miletus, an architect and structural expert, with deep knowledge of materials and construction techniques. According to historian Richard Krautheimer in the book Early Christian and Byzantine Architecture, Yale University Press, 1986, both were not only architects but also pioneering scientists, applying mathematical and physical knowledge to religious structures, something rare in the 6th century. This is why Hagia Sophia later became one of the most successful architectural experiments in history. The city bustled again. Caravans carried wood from the Thrace forests, ships crossed the Aegean Sea bringing marble from the island of Proconnesus. The squares, once somber after the riots, now echoed with hammers, chisels, and the cheers of thousands of craftsmen. But amid that atmosphere, the question still hung in the air: could they erect a gigantic dome, over 55 meters high, in just a few years, when there was no steel, no cranes, and only bricks, stones, along with human strength? The answer, and the technical secrets that would astonish posterity, began to be written from that very moment. Chapter 2. The Design Beyond Its Time. When receiving the order from Emperor Justinian I, Anthemius and Isidore understood that they were not just tasked with building a church. They had to create an eternal symbol. The first sketch they presented to the court was stunning. Instead of a traditional long cross-shaped structure, they would erect a gigantic square block on which a huge round dome would be placed, and from that main dome, extending in 4 directions, would be auxiliary semi-domes. This created the illusion that the dome was floating in space, with nothing supporting it in the middle. In reality, the entire structure was a dance of forces. The force from the main dome was transferred to the semi-domes. The semi-domes then pushed the force down to the load-bearing walls several meters thick. At the corners, they used pendentives, curved triangular vault blocks, to transform the square base into a perfect circle supporting the dome. Architectural historian Roland Mainstone in the book Hagia Sophia, Architecture, Structure and Liturgy of Justinian's Great Church 1988 described the pendentive system of Hagia Sophia as a quantum leap in architectural history, because this was the first time the technique was applied on such a massive scale, opening a new era for global dome construction. The uniqueness was not only in the structure, but also in the light. 40 windows running around the base of the dome allowed light to flood in, reflecting on the marble-clad walls and golden mosaic paintings. This light not only illuminated the space, but also made the dome seem to be floating. a visual miracle that people at the time believed was a manifestation of the divine. When the people of Constantinople heard about the design, many were skeptical. Not a few skilled craftsmen whispered to each other, "How can such a large dome stand firm?" When even the largest church before that only dared to use columns in the middle for support. But Anthemius and Isidore did not rely on luck. They calculated every compressive force, every curve angle, every brick, combining knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and mechanics that few understood at the time. That design was not just a construction drawing. It was a manifesto that humans could conquer space and light to reach perfection. Chapter 3: Materials of Light and Strength. To turn the bold design into reality, Anthemius and Isidore knew they needed something more precious than gold: suitable materials. The gigantic dome had to be light to reduce pressure on the walls, yet durable enough to withstand strong winds and the frequent earthquakes that shook Constantinople. This challenge forced them to seek an unprecedented solution: superlight bricks. This type of brick was fired from clay mixed with pumice and silica-rich minerals, creating countless tiny air pores inside. The result was that each brick was significantly lighter than ordinary bricks, but still hard enough to bear loads. Materials researcher Yelda Algan, in a work published in the Journal of Cultural Heritage, 2016, pointed out that brick samples from Hagia Sophia have a specific gravity about 25% lower than standard Roman bricks, thereby significantly reducing the dome's load. The mortar was also a secret. Byzantine craftsmen mixed fired lime, sea sand, and volcanic ash from the island of Rhodes, creating a flexible, adhesive mortar with the ability to expand slightly under vibration. This gave the structure a breathing capacity, a micro self-adjustment when impacted by weather or earthquakes. Not only the dome, the walls and floors of Hagia Sophia were a mosaic of materials from across the empire. White marble from the island of Proconnesus, Marmara Sea. Green marble from Thessaly, Greece. Red porphyry from Egypt, a stone once reserved only for Roman royalty. Golden onyx from Phrygia, Asia Minor. These stone blocks were transported by ships along Mediterranean sea routes, then brought into the city through the Prosphorion port. The engineers organized continuous transport convoys. When one ship was docking and unloading, another was already departing to bring new materials, ensuring uninterrupted progress. But the materials did not only serve durability, they were also the language of light. White marble reflected the blue light of the Marmara Sea. Green marble softened the midday light, while golden mosaics captured every ray, making the entire space seem covered in a halo. When the first materials were loaded onto the scaffolding, the people of Constantinople began to believe they were about to witness something unprecedented. And it was from these light bricks, flexible mortar layers, and shimmering marble slabs that a 1,500-year wonder began to take shape. Chapter 4: 5 Years That Changed History. Winter 532, when the sounds of hammers and chisels echoed throughout Constantinople, no one expected that in just 5 years, a structure of unprecedented scale would rise in the heart of the city. Normally, a large church at that time took decades, even centuries, to complete. But Emperor Justinian set an almost impossible limit: 5 years. No more. His order was not just personal ambition, but also a political manifesto, to prove that the power of the Byzantine Empire lay not only in the military, but also in the ability to conquer the impossible. Anthemius and Isidore, with a team of over 10,000 workers, divided the project into construction fronts. Foundation front. Hundreds of people dug deep into the soft soil, driving wooden piles and laying stone bases to resist vibrations. Main wall front. Teams built simultaneously on both sides, so when they met in the middle, the foundation was already stable. Dome front. Gigantic scaffolding rose like a wooden forest, fixed with cross-jointed wooden connections to prevent collapse in strong winds. According to research by architectural engineer Robert Oosterhout, published in Dumbarton Oaks Papers, 1999, this extraordinary progress was achieved through a 3-shift labor system per day, continuous throughout the week, with teams specialized for each part. Thus, when one team rested, another immediately replaced them without dismantling or stopping. But the enormous workload also brought countless challenges. In 534, a strong earthquake shook Constantinople, causing part of the scaffolding to collapse, bricks shattering. Instead of being discouraged, Isidore turned the incident into an opportunity. He adjusted the angle of the pendentives, the transitional structures from square walls to round dome, to better distribute forces. This decision is considered one of the main reasons the Hagia Sophia dome has survived over 1,500 years. Day by day, the structure rose, surpassing even the rooftops and watchtowers in the city. The people of Constantinople passed around the saying, "When the sun rises behind the Hagia Sophia scaffolding, the whole city awakens in the light of the Lord." And right in the winter of 537, when the cold covered the Bosphorus, Justinian stepped inside the completed church. That 5-year period had ended, but the story of Hagia Sophia was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Collapse and Rebirth of the Dome. December 27, 537, Hagia Sophia was inaugurated in the glory of the Byzantine Empire. Emperor Justinian, standing in the main nave, raised his head high and exclaimed, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." More than 10,000 workers, craftsmen, and artists had together created the gigantic dome like hanging in the sky, light from 40 windows pouring down, making the space filled with the supernatural. But that glory lasted only 21 years. In 558, a strong earthquake shook Constantinople. Sounds like thunder echoed from the sky. Then part of the gigantic dome collapsed, pulling down tons of bricks and stones. Historian Theophanes recorded that the cause was not only natural disaster, but also because the original design did not sufficiently distribute lateral forces, causing the main pillars to bear excessive pressure. Without hesitation, Emperor Justinian summoned Isidore the Younger, nephew of architect Isidore of Miletus, to reconstruct. After many months of research, Isidore the Younger introduced a series of revolutionary improvements, raising the dome an additional 6.25 meters compared to the original, helping to reduce the curve angle and lower the lateral force impacting the 4 main pillars, increasing the thickness and solidity of the auxiliary semi-domes, acting like shoulders for support, transmitting the load down to the walls, reinforcing the load-bearing walls by adding external pillar rows, creating a structural locking frame. The new dome, completed in 562, was not only more stable, but also more beautiful. The soaring curve allowed more light to enter, making the central space more mystical than before. Modern studies, such as by Roland J. Mainstone, Hagia Sophia, Architecture, Structure, and Liturgy of Justinian's Great Church, 1988, have pointed out that the semi-dome system and reinforced walls function like a force distribution network, helping Hagia Sophia survive a series of terrifying earthquakes, from 869, 989, 1344, to 1766 and 1894. From the failure of 558, Hagia Sophia became a living testament to a timeless engineering philosophy. A great structure is not only born from initial glory, but shaped by falls and rebirths. Thanks to the reconstruction, the Hagia Sophia dome has stood firm for over 1,500 years, challenging time and nature, continuing to tell the story of human intellect's power. After that rebirth, the Hagia Sophia dome was like a battle-hardened warrior, standing firm through centuries of storms. But history never stopped testing. Out there, political storms, distant armies, and new religions were approaching. There would come a day when this place not only changed owners, but also its form, songs, and soul would don a different appearance. That is the next chapter in Hagia Sophia's long journey, a journey that would open with a fateful change. Chapter 6. 1,500 Years Between Light and Change. Since the Hagia Sophia dome was reborn in 562, this structure entered a journey lasting more than 1.5 millennia. A journey measured not only by time, but also by the layers of culture, beliefs, and art that have taken turns leaving their marks. From 537 to 1453, Hagia Sophia was the heart of Eastern Orthodoxy, the Cathedral of Constantinople. Inside, light from dozens of windows at the dome's base blended with the brilliant gold of mosaic paintings depicting saints and biblical scenes, creating a mystical space. Art historians, like Robin Cormack in Byzantine Art, Oxford University Press, 2000, call this divine light architecturized, where every ray is guided to touch the golden mosaic surface, making it sparkle like treasure. But 1453 brought a fateful turning point. When Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Empire, Sultan Mehmed II ordered the conversion of Hagia Sophia into a mosque. The structure began to don new architectural features. Four towering minarets were erected at the four corners, the interior decorated with gigantic calligraphy panels bearing the names of Holy Allah and Prophet Muhammad. Instead of completely erasing, the Ottomans cleverly covered the mosaics with thin plaster layers, as a way to both respect the new religious regulations and quietly preserve them for posterity. By 1935, under the Republic of Turkey, Hagia Sophia was turned into a museum by decision of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. This was the first time in hundreds of years that the world could admire both Byzantine and Ottoman beauty in the same space. Restoration experts gradually peeled off the plaster, restoring light to the centuries-old mosaics, allowing them to stand alongside Arabic calligraphy without conflict, a rare testament to East-West fusion. In 2020, Hagia Sophia once again changed roles, returning as a mosque. Though its function changed, its architectural and artistic value remains intact, and the structure continues to open to international visitors. Researchers like Dr. Robert Oosterhout, University of Pennsylvania, comment that Hagia Sophia is not just a religious structure, but a living chronicle, recording each major chapter of human history through form and light. Today, Hagia Sophia still shines like a jewel at the intersection of two civilizations, where Byzantine and Ottoman beauty do not cancel each other out, but complement each other, creating a unique aesthetic symphony. Chapter 7: Eternal Miracle and Heritage for Humanity. If you have ever set foot in Istanbul and looked up at the Hagia Sophia dome, perhaps the first thing that surprises you is not just the beauty, but the question, how does it still stand after more than 1,500 years in one of the most earthquake-prone regions in the world? Modern seismologists, like the research team from Boğaziçi University, Turkey, in 2020, have analyzed with 3D models and discovered the secret. The main dome system combined with four auxiliary semi-domes and reinforced walls creates an extremely effective force distribution chain. When the ground shakes, the vibrational force does not concentrate at one point but spreads in many directions, reducing the risk of collapse. This is a principle that many modern structures are still learning from. The influence of Hagia Sophia extends beyond Byzantine borders. After Constantinople became Istanbul, Ottoman architects, especially Mimar Sinan, drew inspiration from the dome structure and light of Hagia Sophia to build masterpieces like the Blue Mosque or Soleimani. In Europe, Renaissance architects like Bramante and Michelangelo were also deeply influenced when designing the dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Today, Hagia Sophia is still an active religious structure, but also a heritage of humanity, where engineering intellect, architectural art, and the aspiration to surpass human limits converge. In every brick, every ray of light through the windows, we see the harmony between East and West, between past and present. Hagia Sophia is not just a building. It is proof that, despite collapses, rebirths, religious and power changes, true beauty and intellect will always endure. And perhaps, that is what has made this structure an eternal miracle, a reminder that humanity's true heritage is what we build to transcend time. From when the first brick was laid in 532 under Emperor Justinian I, Hagia Sophia has far exceeded the meaning of a religious structure. It is where engineering, art, and the aspiration to touch eternity blend into a single form. The gigantic dome once collapsed, but thanks to Isidore the Younger's technical improvements, it has stood firm for 1,500 years, challenging both earthquakes and historical changes. Through 7 chapters, we have gone from the golden era of the Byzantine Empire through political religious upheavals to the periods when Hagia Sophia bore different titles: church, mosque, museum, then back to religious function. Each change did not erase the previous, but added new layers of meaning, from brilliant golden mosaics to exquisite Arabic calligraphy, turning this place into a unique fusion of East and West. Today, Hagia Sophia is not only a symbol of Istanbul, but a symbol of humanity's ability to surpass limits. It teaches us that failure can become the foundation of sustainability, that differences can create great beauty, and that true heritage is what survives with time. When the early morning light pierces through hundreds of windows, reflecting on the magnificent dome, Hagia Sophia whispers a 1,500-year-old story, a story where each generation finds a part of itself. That is the over 1,500-year journey of Hagia Sophia, from Christian cathedral, mosque, museum, to returning to religious role today. A structure that not only stands firm against time and earthquakes, but also stands firm in human minds as a symbol of the combination between intellect, art, and faith. If you find today's story interesting, don't forget to press the subscribe button to the Logic Relic channel, where we decode wondrous structures, geological phenomena, and architecture that challenge modern logic. Turn on notifications to not miss the next journeys. Thank you all for accompanying me on this trip. See you again.